Hi guys, welcome back. My name is CS Shantru. Once again, welcome you all to the fast track batch of corporate funding and listing in stock exchange CS Professional Group 3. And now we are about to start another chapter that is called as Real Estate Investment Trust. So as you know that this fast track batch is entirely in English, and we have already covered a lot of content I think in the previous parts. So now we'll start once again with a new chapter, and I hope that you are able to understand everything that I'm being talking about here. And just one more thing before we move forward, I'd like to remind you that in case you feel at any point of time, not just in this subject, but in just any other subject, if you're watching our other subjects as well, because we do have all subjects available. So if you feel at any point of time that the speed in which I'm talking is really too slow or it is too fast, as the case may be, because different students have a different perception. So definitely you will have the option on your iPad, on your mobile, on your laptop, or whatever, wherever you've been watching. Our software supports the speed increase and decrease, so you can definitely use that. Okay, so now let's get started with this chapter where we will talk about real estate investments. Now, as you all know, that real estate is really a buzzword. I mean, if I talk this way, that there was a time whereby people wanted to purchase a house and they could do that easily, because in metros, if I talk about Delhi, Noida, I'm talking in a very generic way, so this is not a specific thing, very, very generic. So in 30, 40 lakhs budget, they were getting kind of a 2 BHK and things of that sort. I'm talking about 2014, 15, but now if you come to these cities, I am not sure about the others because I've never been to every part of India. So if you been to these cities now and you ask the same particular real estate property that was for probably 35 to 40 lakhs, whatever, like 5 to 6 years before, you will come to know and you'll be surprised that that particular 35 to 40 lakh property has now been increased and probably worth 60 or 65 lakh, depending upon the location and various other factors. So that's what real estate has really done. So real estate could be just anything. It could be like the apartments, it could be the shops, the malls, etc. So all of that is a part of real estate. But the important thing that we have to understand here is that in real estate, lots and lot of money is being required to actually build a real estate. You see that wherever you stay, if there's any construction going on, like a multi-story building is getting constructed, probably 10, 12, 15, 20 or whatever floors, you will see that that construction will be happening day and night. Still it will take years actually to complete that. So obviously not just the time, but also take a lot of investment to complete that, so many regulatory approvals. So this is not something that can be done just by one person or like few amount of money. You really need a bucket full of money, a truck full of money, or even more than that to actually build any real estate project. So anyway, talking about the REIT, it says that in REIT, the buildings, the apartment, the hospitals, the shopping centers, the hotel, all of this can be included. So the concept of REIT is like, if you wanted to invest in the property, there are various options, and one of them could be you buy the property and give it on rent or something. The other option is probably that you invest through REIT, because if you give the money to REIT, yeah, if you purchase the units of REIT, the money you give to REIT, that will be invested in some real estate project, and you will be start getting return. Because for me, if I talk about, it is not possible for me actually to invest probably 15 crore rupees or 20 crore rupees in just one project. I may not have that money at this particular point of time, and even if I have, I may not actually inclined to invest the entire money in just one project. So with REIT, what I can do is I can give some to one REIT, some to other REIT. So that way my investment goes in the same project as to what I was thinking to invest. But rather than investing like crores and crores of rupees, even if I just invest few lakh rupees, then also my investment get invested in the same project which I actually was thinking of. So I think this also is a beauty of the REIT. So REIT probably is based on the concept whereby people actually invest the money, and that money that gets invested in the real estate projects. Now, the concept of REIT started in US in around 1960, and subsequently it actually spread across the globe, including India. But in India, I think we have been a bit late. So it says that it got started in India in the year 2014. So if you see that this is like the country's flags and all, and then if you see that there are various countries who have started even before India did that. Now there are I mean countries like Portugal and Oman and Saudi Arabia. So these countries, as I can see now, or Vietnam, they started after or around what time India has started. But other than that, most of the countries, most of the developed countries have already started, except the one which are being mentioned here on the right hand side. These countries are still considering whether or not to start REIT. China probably doesn't need REIT because it already had a lot of infrastructure and real estate already established in place. So I think that way it is. But anyway, so REIT was introduced in India in 2014, but the guidelines on the tax part as to how the income will be taxed, etc., was not really clear. Then the government presented its 2015 budget, whereby government clarified a few things, but then the expert was still not very sure about REIT or the way it will actually work. And then in 2019, finally, this was taken seriously. And the first thing the government did to make sure that REIT can also be, successfully utilized, or probably is a concept whereby more and more people can or be attracted. So what government did was that the initial amount of investment in REIT prior to 2019, 1st March 2019, was 2 lakh rupees. So the first thing that the government did was reduce the REIT minimum amount of investment to rupees 50,000 rather than 2 lakhs. So I think this, by this way, a lot of people who were having less than 1 lakh rupees and were not able to invest in REIT because the minimum amount of investment was rupees 2 lakh. Now they also got the opportunity and the chance to invest in REIT. So REIT are just like normal shares; they will be listed on the stock exchange, and you can probably purchase and sell the share. If you, when you are actually done with this class, you actually go to the Google and probably type REITs in India. You will find out there are probably many REITs in India, and then their share price will also be reflected. The unit price will also be reflected. While I'm being speaking to you, I just checked the current REIT prices of few of the REITs. I checked 3 of them. So the first one that was being launched in India was probably this Embassy Office Park REIT. So all of the REIT are really doing good. Probably there's like just like the normal shares where you have 52-week high and 52-week low price. So similar with the REIT, and almost all the companies who have issued REIT, their unit price is, I'll not say that they've been trading at an all-time high, but approximately near about 52 weeks high. So everything is being going good. The government is really spending a lot on the real estate as well as the infrastructure. We'll talk about the infrastructure when we talk about INVIT. But for now, REIT regulations were passed in 2014. Obviously, they have been amended a lot of times since then. So for REIT, you also need to establish a trust, and that's where the trustee, etc., comes in. So you see that the parties involved in REIT are sponsors, managers, and trustee. And when you talk about trustee, the trustee cannot really exist unless and until there is a trust. The sponsors are those who actually invest or probably start the REIT. So they are the one who are the first investors and have actually brought up the idea of buying a property and investing the amount of money, and then channelizing the investment and giving the returns to the investors. So all of this has been done by the sponsors. So the sponsors need to minimum invest 5%. Like if there are more than one sponsors, so each of the sponsors need to invest at least 5%. And if there are, let's say, 6 sponsors, so if you talk about 5% each, and there are 6 sponsors, so 5 into 6 is 30. So you cannot do that because the maximum amount of investment that the sponsors can done collectively is 25%. So if you are talking individually, it's 5%. If you've been talking collectively, it is maximum 25%. That's how the REIT investment is being done by the sponsors. So this is what has been written, and as I said, REIT will be listed just like the normal shares. And the good thing about REIT is that they will invest 80% of the corpus that has been raised from the public in those projects which are revenue generating projects. So you see, as I just said, that if we talk about building a shopping mall, it is not something that will be completed. Forget about days or week or months. It will not be completed in probably 6 months or even more than that, depending upon how much big it is. So they will not invest the money in just anything and everything. They will invest majority, which is obviously 80%, in those assets which are up and running, meaning those assets which have the capacity and the capability to generate the income. Now rest 20% out of that 100, 80 goes to the project which are up and running, through which the income can be generated and given to the investors who have invested in REIT. The rest 20% can be invested in those projects which are under constructions. So that's how the REIT actually works. And then it says the distribution of income, 90% of the income will be distributed to the unit holders, obviously after deducting the tax. And then if you talk about the minimum subscription size, so I think I've already told you that initially it was 2 lakh rupees, but now it has been reduced to 50,000 rupees. That's how the REIT actually functions. So if you see this picture, this makes quite clear that you being giving a lot of money and investing in a building, and then slowly and gradually a lot of people are actually getting returns in the form of income from that REIT. It is similar as to what you get in the company in the form of dividend on shares. Now, talking about a few definitions that have been given here, the first actually is the associate. Now, the word associate itself, the literal meaning is somebody who has been associated or probably related with the REIT, or directly or indirectly. So it says anybody who has been related or has the control over what the REIT does can be termed as an associate. Does not really matter whether that person is being named as such in any of the document or not. But if he or she, or as the case may be, actually controls what REIT does or advise the members or the managers as to what needs to be done, then that particular person will be termed as the associate. Now, completed property is a property which has received the NOC, no objection certificate, or kind of OC, which is occupation certificate, meaning it is perfectly okay to commence the business or for people to come and reside. So that will be called as a completed property. And then if we talk about the structures of the REIT, so as I said, the important part, obviously all the parties are important, but then the unit holders are the one who will be investing the money, the sponsors are the one who will be investing the money, or sponsors will be the first one who will be investing the money. The managers will make sure that the money that actually comes in actually gets invested in the right place, and that 80 and 20% ratio, as we discussed above, stays maintained all the time. The trustee will make sure that the rights of the members stays protected, and no members or the unit holder is being given excessive right. So everybody is being regarded as equal. To make sure that this happens is the responsibility of the trustee. Now, to make sure that the risk actually stays aligned, an SPV will be formed, which will be called as a special purpose company. The SPV will actually invest the money and probably do all the dealings. Because if you do the dealings with the parent company, then there are chances that if the company goes into liquidation, any assets that are being owned by the parent company will also be attached by the liquidator. So we'll actually start all of this business in the new company, which is like an SPV, and that's where the situation or the changes will start from. So I think that has been mentioned here to make sure that the liquidators, in case just liquidation happens, the liquidator will not be able to attach all of the assets. We'll keep the business separate, and we'll keep a company separate who will be distributing the income to the unit holders. Now, talking about the occupancy certificate, I think I've already mentioned this will be issued by the authority when every thing has been completed inside the property. But since this we are talking about REIT, so real estate includes buildings, sheds, garage, warehouse, shopping malls, hospitals. All of that is a part of the real estate. So that what has been mentioned here. So talking about the parties that are being involved in any of the REIT, so it's being said we have sponsors, we have managers, we have trustee. I think we did discuss about the word sponsors. So whereas said sponsors are those who actually start the REIT, and obviously as we discussed earlier as well, they also need to invest a certain portion. One sponsor need to hold at least 5%, while collectively it cannot be more than 25%. So those are the sponsors, and sponsor can be an individual or an organization. But then we also have sponsor group, which means that if any of the company is a sponsor, then any of the subsidiary companies that are being associated with that company. So holding company is the sponsor. So by default, any of the subsidiaries company for that holding company would automatically be included under the definition of the sponsor group. And I think if we talk about individuals, so it's being just like that. If one individual is a sponsor, his relative obviously will also be included in the definition of sponsor group. So I think it's relatively the same way as to what we were discussing earlier as well. Just to broaden the definition, all these points have been included. Now, for anybody to act as a sponsor, I think I mentioned that they have to register themselves with SEBI, and SEBI will actually issue a certificate of registration. So to get yourself registered as sponsor is a different thing, and to bring REIT is a different thing. Sponsors are the first step whereby the REIT foundation is being laid down, but obviously these are two different things. For sponsor, you will take a different approval. For REIT issues and listing, you will take a different approval. So in regard to the eligibility criteria, it says that first and the foremost thing is that all of this will be governed as per the provision of the trust deed. So a trust needs to be formed, and then the trustee also needs to be nominated. And whatever probably is being written in the trust deed has to be registered as per the provision of the Registration Act 1908, which I'm sure you must have read in your CS executive. Talking about the sponsors, so the name of the sponsor should be clearly mentioned in the offer document, so that anybody actually investing in the REIT should be aware as to who these sponsors are. It's being further said that the net worth of the sponsors should be at least, or not less than, like it's the same thing, should be at least 100 crores, and they should have an experience of at least 5 years in this real estate thing. Because unless and until they have some experience, like 5 years experience is not a very big experience, but unless and until they have an experience, they may not be able to know as to what is correct and what's not, what is the property worth investing and what is the property not worth investing. And since everything is being relied on them, and they are the one who's been starting REIT, and I think that is why we said that they should have that net worth of at least a minimum of 100 crore rupees. In regard to the manager, it's being said that manager is somebody or an organization, association, who actually takes care of the ways the fund needs to be invested, like in which property the fund needs to be invested, till what time the fund should actually stay invested in that property. Because it is not like that once you have invested in the property that you will not sell that amount, or you will not sell that portion. We have to actually judge as per the market circumstances and the situation, and I think that's what the managers are getting paid for. So the manager also need to have an experience of 5 years, and their net worth should at least be 10 crores. So rather than 100 crores, which are the net worth of like the minimum net worth of the sponsor, when it comes to manager, this has been reduced like 10 times. So from 100 crores, this is 10 crores. The reason we are having less like amount for the manager is like manager is not somebody who's investing, right? Sponsor is somebody who is investing, and based on that investment, other people will also invest. But manager role is not of an investment purpose; it's more of the advisory side of things as to what needs to be done and how to generate the best returns. In regard to the trustee, so trustee again need to make sure that everybody who is being associated with REIT actually is being given a fair chance, meaning that nobody should be given any superior or any differential voting right as to the other, and the managers or probably the sponsors need to make sure that all the conditions that are mentioned in the trust deed need to be abided, like payment of the income to the unit holders of the REIT needs to be made as per the condition mentioned in the offer document. Otherwise, a trustee will actually let this know to the the unit holders, and collectively they can take a further or a big decision as to what needs to be done. So that's what the role of trustee is. In regard to the issue and allotment of units, there have been some minimum guidelines as to what needs to be allotted to the public. So first of all, it says that REIT is just like normal when you go for an IPO and FPO and you list your shares. Similarly, REIT units will also be listed, and no REIT can be brought obviously unless and until SEBI has approved the same, and the REIT should have the issue size of at least, or the assets owned at least 500 crore rupees. So it says the value of the REIT assets owned by REIT is at least more than 500 crores, meaning that because I think I explained this when we started this chapter, that when we talk about real estate projects and when we talk about infrastructure projects, these are not that project that you will invest the money today and probably from tomorrow you'll start getting the return. You can see any of the examples, any of the building, any of the roads, any of the malls getting constructed nearby your house, or you must have seen any of these far away from your house. So you will know the fact that they are not something that they will be ready in a day or a month. It takes months and months and sometimes years and years to get that particular thing ready, right? So in that case, it's being said that REIT should have this much amount of money in the form of assets before they actually undertake anything further. Like they need to show to SEBI that they have like 500 crore rupees assets with them, and now they are getting into the business of REIT. So apart from the net worth thing that we discussed earlier, which says like 100 crores net worth should be there, this is an addition thing where it says the REIT assets should be at least a minimum of 500 crore rupees. Further, it's being said that the requirement, the third point, the requirement of ownership of assets and size of REIT should be not less than, or you can call it as at least, it's just like the same thing, 500 crores may be complied at any point of time before the allotment of units in regard to the offer document or the placement memorandum. So it is not like that once the documents for the public offer are being filed by REIT with SEBI that they have to have like 500 crores worth of assets with them. It is just like either then when they are filing the offer document with SEBI, or like a day prior to which the issue actually gets open and the people actually start investing, or the people actually getting the allotment. REIT has to make sure that before they do the first allotment, in a very, very simple language, before they do the first allotment to the public, they need to have the asset size of 500 crore rupees. So that's how the REIT will start. Now, you can yourself assume that when we're talking about 500 crores and we've been saying that not less than, or probably we are saying a minimum. So you can see we are saying minimum investment in the assets of REIT should be 500 crore rupees, which is obviously a very, very big amount. If like a layman has to write this 500 crore rupees, there are chances that he or she will actually write it wrong and probably may get confused with the zeros in this 500 crores. Talking about the number of units or the size that needs to be allocated to public. So it says depending upon the value of the REIT or how much REIT issue is all about. If the REIT issue is up till 1,600 crores, then at least 25% should go to the public. So out of this 1,600, I suppose 25% is like 400 crores worth of units should be subscribed by the public. This is the minimum requirement as being prescribed. If the issue size is more than 1,600 crore, but that is up to 4,000 crores, then it says directly like 400 crores need to be subscribed by the public. And if the REIT issue size is obviously more than 4,000 crores, then 10% at least need to be offered to the public. So you see, it has been written every time, not less than, at least, not less than means minimum. So minimum this much has to be allocated or probably offered to the public. And then we will also come to know as we move forward that in case REIT is not being subscribed by like 90% as to what we usually follow in an IPO and the public issue, then the REIT will fail and the managers have the responsibility to make sure, or the issuer will have a responsibility along with the lead managers to make sure that the amount actually gets refunded to the necessary or to the concerned people. Anyway, Further, it's being said that once the REIT probably has been in the market, then the sponsors probably could bring anything further, like they can issue preference, they can probably come up with a preferential issue, they can come up with the FPO, they can come with the REIT issue. So just like the normal IPO process, this REIT also has the option, because once they're being launched in the market, they do have various other options as are available to the other companies to raise the funding from the market. Now, REIT has to make sure that just like a public issue, they need to file the draft offer document, and the draft offer document obviously will be filed with the SEBI and the stock exchange. And depending upon the comments that are being received from the public or the recommendation of the SEBI, the lead merchant banker has to make sure that those comments or suggestions as given by SEBI are being incorporated in the offer document, and then the revised or the updated offer document is again being filed, taking into account the recommendation of SEBI. Further, it's being said that once the initial public offer, or probably the SEBI has given the approval to REIT to be launched into the market, then the REIT sponsor will have a maximum of 1 year within which they will have to come with the issue in the market. Like if they take the approval from SEBI and didn't come up with the REIT issue in the market, and it's been probably more than 1.5 years, then they will have to repeat the entire process again. So it means that once the approval of SEBI has been given, then you will have maximum of 1 year within which you have to come up with the issue. Otherwise, you will have to do the formalities again. So that's what has been written. The reason for this is as the time passes, things obviously gets changed. So I think that is what has been the intention of the legislature. Further, it's being said, just like the normal offer document of a listed company where everything is being disclosed, here also you will have to disclose everything, saying the risk capacity and who should invest, and all those things which anybody should know before they invest in REIT. Because as compared to the public issue, be it IPO or FPO, obviously REIT is kind of a latest thing, like in comparison to the IPO or FPO. Although it is true that REIT has been here since 2014, somewhere near that, but still it is quite new. If you see the number of REITs in India, probably you'll find it very less as compared to obviously the public listed companies. So you have to make sure that every disclosure is being given, so that the investor don't feel cheated later on, that something else has been given to him and his understanding to REIT was something else. It should not happen. So clear disclosures are being required. In case the oversubscription has been done, then obviously proportionate, the units will be allocated on the proportionate basis. And in case the minimum subscription, which is of 90%, is not being met, then the issue will get failed, and anybody who's invested in the REIT will be given the withdrawal. Further, it's being said that the offer will open for a maximum of 30 days. So once it is being opened, it can stay open for the period of 30 days, after which it will be closed. So that is the maximum time limit. I think 30 days is more than sufficient anyway. So it's being further said that 90% has to be subscribed, like REIT has to be subscribed by 90%. If not, it will be termed as like a failure thing. And then the reason whereby the people will get the refund is either the issue has failed, or probably issue has been oversubscribed. And in case it has been oversubscribed, they will be given some units in the form of proportionate allotment, and the extra or the over and above that money will be refunded to the investor who has given the money. Further, it's being said that a minimum of 200 investors are being required in case the number of subscribers falls below 200. So 90% is different criteria. But if the number of investors who have invested in REIT falls below 200, then again it will be a failure to the issue and the amount has to be refunded. Talking further about the refund, so it's being said that the manager to the issue has a responsibility to refund the amount in case the issue fails, and in case the amount is not being refunded in the time allotted, then the amount has to be refunded anyway, but now this time it will be with interest of 15%. Plus, if the REIT actually gets registered itself with SEBI, and then for it says 3 years have passed and the REIT hasn't really done anything, then it is probably something gives the intention whereby REIT is not interested. So the REIT has to surrender the certificate with SEBI. It is simple. Like if you have been getting registered specifically as an REIT and to do the work of REIT, and after the registration it's been like more than 3 years, and no activity whatsoever has been undertaken, then that's prima facie probably an example or clarification that the people are not interested to do the REIT business, so they have to surrender the certificates. In regard to the listing and the trading of the units, it says just like the normal shares, like the normal IPO, FPO, the shares will be listed on the nationwide terminals, NSE and BSE. I mean, if you pause the video or even after watching the video, you search on Google REIT in India, you will find the names of REIT coming there, like Embassy Parks and all. I think I mentioned that earlier as well. And you will also see their unit price under NSE or BSE as to where they're being listed. So they're being listed on the nationwide terminals. Further, it's been said that the listing will be done as per the listing of the trading in the REIT will be done as per the bylaws of the stock exchange, unless the REIT actually makes an application or the unit holders actually makes an application. The REIT will once listed will always stay listed unless the application has been made to delist the REIT. Further, it's being said about the delisting of the unit. The manager shall apply for delisting of unit to SEBI and the stock exchange if no project or asset remaining under REIT for a period exceeding 6 months, or REIT does not propose to invest any project in the future. Now, because it's all about investing, you have been taking money from the people, giving them I'll not say a false promise, but giving them a promise that you will not only return the money that you've been taking from them, but you will also pay them something extra. So now, if REIT has something in its mind that they don't want to continue the business, so obviously it is better that they make an application to SEBI and get themselves delisted and distribute the proceed as to what is remaining between the unit holders. So it's being said that if the REIT thinks that after 6 months from now, let's say today's 1st January, although it's not, but let's take an example. So today's 1st January and REIT thinks that they will not have much work after 4 to 5 months or at most 6 months. So 1st January is today, so they've been saying that after 6 months from now, which is till 30th June, there will be some amount of work involved, but after that there's nothing to involve or there's no work pending as such. Plus REIT is not even considering to invest anything further in the new project, so that means they've been trying to close down, they've been trying to wind up. So they have to make an application to the SEBI. So it's not just like that whenever you want you can just close it down. You have, as like you did registration with SEBI following the procedures, similar thing has to be followed in regard to the delisting as well. And it's not about just SEBI, but you also have to make the application to the concerned stock exchange where your units are being listed for the delisting side. Plus, it's being said that SEBI, instead of requiring delisting of the unit, because it is like relatively a new concept, so if the REIT has done some non-compliance, so one perspective is that REIT want themselves like voluntary delisting. The other is SEBI has pushed the REIT to follow rules and regulation, and it's been quite harsh on REIT, and now they've been planning that they will not stay listed and they will get themselves delisted. But if SEBI thinks that some time should be given to REIT to improvise what wrong they have done, so SEBI can actually give more time. The logic behind adding this point is that, as I said earlier as well, that REIT is relatively a new concept. So if the government, I'm not saying that the government should actually promote anything illegal, but if the government will be too much harsh on this, which is relatively a new concept or a new topic, then I don't think so that this concept will be able to flourish or probably will be able to spread further. So I think for that perspective, government, if things required, can give some extra time to REIT in case it is non-compliant, to make themselves compliant, otherwise it will be delisted. Further, once it is delisted, the certificate of registration of REIT needs to be submitted to SEBI. So as I was saying that Embassy Park, Office Park REIT was really the first REIT that actually got launched in terms of India. So you can see the details and you can see the issue size as well, which is obviously more than 4,000 crores. We discussed earlier in this class where we mentioned that if the issue size is like 1600, 16 to 4000, and then 4000 and above, how much needs to be allocated to public, etc. So you can see that this has been mentioned, and this is how the REIT actually starts. And not only that, but you will see just after, I mean, wherever the content is being written, just beside that there are so many real estate, like probably malls, probably shops, probably warehouses, and buildings, etc., apartment, etc. So that's where the REIT actually invests the money. Now, in regard to the investment condition and distribution policy, so it's being said that the REIT will invest the money in accordance with the things that are being mentioned in the offer document. So ultimately, the person who will be investing the money are the managers, right? Because we discussed earlier that there will be sponsors, there will be manager, there will be trustee. So manager will be investing in terms of the offer document, and they will not forget that the basic rule of REIT says that 80% of the money of REIT should go in those assets which are revenue generating, and the rest 20% can be invested in so-called as under constructed project where the income is not available at this stage, but obviously it will be available anytime sooner now. So all of that have to be considered, but REIT will not invest in agriculture or any of the mortgage land. Plus, the other thing that we have to be make sure that one REIT will not invest in the unit of the other REIT. So these are the few things that have to be considered. And then when we talk further about this, I think we can mention that the manager will ensure that in every meeting, including annual general meeting, of the holding and SPV, the voting of the REIT is exercised. So in case the REIT has invested certain sum of money in any of the apartment, in the construction of the apartment, so whenever the meeting for that builder actually happens, the manager on the behalf of REIT will represent REIT in that meeting, and obviously will vote according to the voting share and the situations. So that is what has been written. Other than that, I've already told you about 80% and 20% condition. 80% of the money has to be invested in the complete projects, while 20 can be invested in those projects which are under constructed and which are not generating the income. But as I said, they will be generating the income quite soon, or the government projects. So only 20% can be allocated to this, but more than majority, which is 80%, actually goes to those projects which are 100% complete and obviously generating income or revenue as well. The other thing that we have to be sure about is that the other thing that we have to make sure, so as I said, like it's 80-20, but if you see the value of the property actually keeps on appreciating, depreciating. So for example, let's say the total corpus, I'm just taking an assumption to actually help you understand this. So let's say the total amount that REIT has raised is, let's say, 100 crore rupees. Just an example, as I said. Now we said out of this 100 crores, 80%, which is obviously 80 crore, will go to the assets which are generating income, and rest 20% can go to the under construction thing that we discussed, right? Now, there may be situations whereby this balance may not be maintained. It could be 78 and 22, or it could be 18 and 82. This can happen because what will happen over the period of time, that the amount that actually gets invested, the property in which it is getting invested, the value of the property may increase or decrease. So it says that in case any of these things are happening, it is not possible every day. I mean, thinking practically, it is not possible every day to sell the property, to purchase the property, and to do or maintain that 80-20% throughout the day. It is not possible, right? It is not practically possible. So it says that the ratio of this 80-20% will be reviewed on a half-year basis, and the manager has to make sure that this stays like constant to the extent possible every month. But if not, then every half yearly it will be under reviewed, actually, to make sure that whether the managers are being maintaining that desired 80-20 ratio or not. In case there is any breach to the same will be reported to the regulatory agencies. That's how it will be done. So it says, like, the review period will be 6 months, and we'll keep on reviewing that every 6 months to make sure that everything actually has been going in the right direction. Now, it's been further said that in case any amount of money needs to be invested, and there's one REIT who is investing the money, and then there's another company which is altogether a different company. So there are two parties who are investing the money, because the amount of money that's being needed for that real estate project is just like a massive amount. So probably REIT is given 4,000 crores and the other public company is also giving probably 5,000 crores. I'm just taking an example. So if there are two investors, one is REIT and the other is a public company, so the trustee have to make sure that the terms of the investment between these two, which is REIT and that public company, are equal. It should not be like the person who have taken the shares in that public company are being given some excessive voting right, while the person who have taken the units in REIT are being getting the less right or a lesser voting right. So there shouldn't be any kind of a discrimination. So this also need to be checked, that everybody should be placed at a fair position and nobody should have the advantage over the other. Further, it says that the distribution, like the income that's being generated from the asset, needs to be distributed within 15 days. If not, then it has to be paid anyway, but now this will be paid with the interest of 15%. So whenever the decision has been made by REIT that the income will be distributed, the income in the form of rent or whatever that has been generated by investing in a particular property. So whenever a decision has been made that we will be distributing this much amount, like in total, and this is to every unit holder, so that needs to be completed within 15 days of the declaration that they will be distributing the profits or the income. In case it is not being given within 15 days, then the amount will anyway be given, but now this will be given along with the interest of 15%. So this is what has been written. Further, if we take this further, it says the right and meeting of the unit holders. So unit holders are the ultimate kind of owners, because obviously they will be investing the money, and it's just probably because of them the REIT will be investing. It's not like that sponsor is not investing, but sponsor is somebody who has started that. So it's just not like about sponsor, but I think unit holder also have a very active role to play. So the unit holders have the right to get the income or the distribution as and when it's being declared. The unit holder also have the right to vote at the meeting and to present their point of view. Also have the right to get the notice of the meeting, just like a normal company, 21 days before the meeting. Now, as per the rule of law, it's been further said that REIT has to conduct the meeting within 120 days after the end of the financial year. So we've been talking about like kind of 4 months. I mean, generally speaking, as per the law, we'll say 120 days. But calculating roughly, it's like within 4 months of the closure of the financial year. So April, May, June, July, you have to make sure that within July, which is like 4 months from 31st March, the meeting has to be held. And just before the meeting, make sure that 21 days before the notice are being sent to the unit holders. The unit holders will not only get the notice, but will also get the financials, will also probably get the discussion if there's any change in regard to the auditors, the evaluation report, so that they can be aware of all of that, and the same can be discussed when the meeting is being held for a fruitful discussion. This is not something very new, I suppose, because this is what you've been studying in the public issues, right? Whenever there's any thing that the company has to do, they will call the meeting, they will issue 21 days notice, they will send a notice, they will send an explanatory statement, and everything will be mentioned there. So I think that's what we've been doing here as well. In case of any change in the management, or like a removal of the manager, or in case there's any change in regard to the investment strategy, because there will be some investment strategy that is mentioned in the offer document, but now there is some change in regard to that. So it says that this can be only and only done when the approval of the shareholders or probably the unit holders are being taken. Without their approval, you will not be able to change the managers, or you will not be able to change the investment strategy. So I think that's what has been written here. And with this, we have finally come to the end of the chapter as well. In the next class, we will start the next chapter, that is called as INVIT, like in the short form, this is what we call it. So in the normal language, it's been called as Infrastructure Investment Trust. So now, rather than investing in hospitals, in malls, in apartments, we'll be investing in roads, we'll be investing in highways, we'll be investing on railway tracks, we'll be investing on everything which actually helps the entire economy and not just few people. So that's called as the infrastructure. So we'll talk about that in the next class. But I hope whatever I've just said in this class, I have explained that pretty much clear, and you should be able to understand that. Now, just before you go and probably we meet again for the next class, may I please remind you that we do have the fast track batches available in Hindi as well as English for all subjects of CS Executive and CS Professional. Side by side, if you wanted to actually check your, the preparation for the examination, the way you write, the way you present your answer, it's not about knowledge, it's the way you present your answer, then you should definitely enroll for our test series, which is again available for all subjects. Download our mobile app, which is called as Shantanu and Tanya Academy from the Google Play Store, and you'll find the details around all of these things. Thank you so much for choosing Shantanu and Tanya Academy.